Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Rabbi Says. I'm your host, Rabbi Ari Enkin, here from our studios in Beit Shemesh. Today, Michael and I will be speaking about three exciting topics. I guess you can call it babies, birthdays, and bastards. That's right.
No cursing on the show.
No cursing. It's a legitimate word. A bastard is an illegitimate child. Unfortunately, the word is misused on the street, but it's a legitimate word.
Keep it clean, all right?
We'll keep it clean. You don't worry what the rabbi says over here in our program, part of the moral edge, and we're going to always be moral. Babies in Judaism. That's what we're going to begin with today, right, Michael?
Yes, sounds good.
So babies, of course, are a very, very important part of Jewish life, Jewish continuity. We need babies. We are pro-life. We want babies. And it's very interesting is how do you determine if a baby's Jewish? When is a baby Jewish? When is a baby not Jewish? So according to Talmudic law, a baby's Judaism is determined by the mother, matrilineal descent. But what's very, very interesting, Michael, most people don't know this. It wasn't always that way. From the biblical times up until probably Ezra, 400 BCE, the father, the paternal line was taken into consideration for Judaism as well. It was only after Ezra and the codification, the Talmud and the later codes, was it decided to go only matrilineal descent.
You mean it was both or just patrilineal?
It was just patrilineal. Yeah, it was just patrilineal until the days of Ezra.
That it's not from the Torah. In other words, the Torah itself doesn't.
So that's a very good question.
What makes a Jewish child.
So very good question. So the Talmud proves that ultimately we will follow the mother. Verses in Deuteronomy that prove that it goes through the mother. The question is, how to do that beforehand? Why beforehand they took the paternal? Different theories are given for that. I saw some literature that says that was taken on non-Jewish societies. That's the way they grew up. That's the way they experienced. We know that there were things that Jewish people adapted from Egyptian culture, Egyptian life, that made its way even past the giving of the Torah. Some of the early Jewish rituals were based on the Egyptian experience, the Egyptian religion. That's what the Jews are used to. That's what they grew up with, so to speak. So here too, some are saying that there was influence from non-Jewish societies to adapt the paternal lineage. But Ezra put an end to that.
But let's say mother was Jewish, father was not. Halachically, according to Jewish law, they're Jewish. You're saying for centuries, they treated that person as a non-Jew?
I'm saying there are strong evidence to suggest there are theories that, yes, it worked that way.
What about the time of Moses and, Joshua?
Great example. Moses and Joseph. Let's talk about Moses and Joseph. Perfect example. Michael, on the ball. Moses marries what appears to be a non-Jewish woman. Joseph marries what appears to be a non-Jewish woman. So now Rabbinic Judaism is all over this. How is it possible? Our greatest leaders married non-Jewish women. So Rabbinic Judaism has an easy answer. They converted. They accepted monotheism. They became Jewish. Whatever being Jewish was back then, they became Jewish. And that's one answer. It's a good answer. But others want to say that that's proof right there. That was paternal lineage that made the difference. And that's why Moses' children were Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, very interesting. A lot of people are not aware of that. So that's lineage in Judaism, Michael. The halacha is today, make no mistake, we follow only maternal lineage. Paternal lineage is not accepted in any way, shape, or form. But for tribal descent, we do go by paternal lineage. I myself am a Levite. How do I know I'm a Levite? Because my father's a Levite, and his father, and his father, and his father. But the mothers down the line were whatever tribes they might have been. So it's very point to make on that note is that for the most part, the Jewish people don't know which tribes they come from because there were 12 tribes and we know most of them were lost. So Jews today generally come from Judah or Benjamin, but the Levites, my family, we have a better assumption, a better lineage to know which tribe we came from. So that's my piece on lineage. Maybe go into bris, milah, as we say, the circumcision ceremony. On the 8th day of a baby boy's life, he must have a bris. Many people don't know that a bris done even an hour earlier is not valid.
So what would you have to do? Do a redo?
Oh, very good. So we have a thing in Judaism, whenever a bris is problematic or it might not have been done in the proper method, we have a system, a ritual called hatafas dam bris. Hatafas dam bris is a post-circumcision ceremony where we take a needle of some sort and make a little tiny hole in the male organ in order to draw even a drop of blood. That becomes the circumcision post facto if the original true cutting circumcision was invalid. So it's very, very interesting. You get all kinds of questions. What if a baby was born Friday afternoon after sunset but before dark? Is the bris going to be on Friday? Is the bris going to be on Shabbat? These are issues we face with on a weekly basis. But because a bris is invalid if done even a minute before the 8th day, you always delay to the later time, because even though a late bris is not good either, but it is what we say b'diavad, post facto.
It's certainly valid. It's only invalid if it's
correct.
Earlier.
If it's invalid. A case I dealt with today. Today, a case came up that a baby was born on a plane going through the date line.
Oh, wow.
So it was unclear how to calculate the baby's 8th day. So the ruling was, like we just said, that you have to go with with certainty to ensure that 8 days have passed, and therefore the baby's bris was delayed an extra 24 hours to ensure the 8th day was passed.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Shabbat and babies have their own world of Jewish consideration, of Jewish law. We're more lenient in Jewish law, especially on Shabbat with babies. Babies are treated as those who are sensitive, maybe those who are ill, those who need extra care, and leniencies to help children to take care of their needs, whatever it might be, from diapering to feeding to bathing. We're more lenient in Jewish law in general and Shabbat in particular when it comes to babies.
Now, how does it work with a convert? Let's say a child of a family that is converting. Let's say both parents are converting. They have a young son, a baby, how old, toddler, whatever. Does that baby get a circumcision at that age, or do they have to wait until the child is 13?
Very good. So, famous question dealt with all the time. When a family is converting and the baby was already born, the baby is circumcised immediately after or as part of the conversion.
Do you wait 8 days after the conversion, or it's immediate?
It's immediate. It's upon conversion. That's right.
No matter what age the child is.
That's correct. Now, if the child is older, they're going to use different forms of anesthetic, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But a bris at the 8th day, there's no anesthetic.
But something has to happen when they're 13, or a girl. Well, girls don't get brises, but in terms of conversion,
very good. That's right.
Doesn't the child at 13 have to agree? Even if he got a circumcision, but that's not enough.
That's right.
So tell us about that.
That's right. What you're referring to is upon adulthood, which for a girl is 12, the bat mitzvah ceremony, and for a boy it's 13, the bar mitzvah ceremony. The children have to formally accept their Judaism, because when you're under bar mitzvah, everything's essentially against your will. But over bar bat mitzvah, you take it on for yourself. So yes, the child, now adult, has to reaffirm their Judaism.
What does that mean exactly? They have to commit to keep all the commandments in the Torah. They just say, I believe in God, I believe in the Torah, but what kind of commitment do they have to give? Also at 13, you're not really an adult yet. So what does the child have to commit to at that point?
So let me correct you on one point there. From the Jewish perspective, you are an adult at 13. It sounds maybe silly in some context. You can't drink or drive at that age, but you are an adult in Judaism. And a conversion is only valid whenever or however the conversion is done if the candidate commits to keeping the entire Torah. If the candidate says, I love, most of the mitzvahs over here, but that
there's just one I
don't like, the conversion is invalid. And that's a great topic. Maybe we'll get to in the C's in our next episode, perhaps conversions, because the reality is so many conversions in North America today are completely invalid.
Done for marriage,
for all kinds of ulterior motives, and it's almost
to get a green card.
Whatever it might know. It's I've seen it. I've seen for immigration purposes, marriage for immigration purposes. So it's a joke, but will that be for the conversion program that we're going to do, I hope. But one interesting point is giving of the name. As you probably know, the name is given at a bris for a boy. So a couple points I want to share with you. One is that's a newish custom. I don't mean new like yesterday, but it wasn't the original custom, because we know that as soon as Isaac was born, he was given the name on the spot, though his bris was 8 days later. So this idea of delaying the name is like New Age Judaism. It came later. It is, hallowed custom, don't get me wrong, but I like to point out historical,
Not only that, if the parents agree on the name before the circumcision, you can't tell anyone. It's got to be the biggest secret in the world. Like, you don't say the name. The parents sit there. The parents, you generally don't know. They sit there waiting. What's going to be the name of my not the parents. I'm saying the parents of the parents. The grandparents of which I am. You sit there and, just anticipation. What's the name going to be? It's
So
always
you bring up a very good point that I want to actually go into right now.
Oh, it just reminds me of something else.
You reminded me of something else. Yeah. Back to, I should take a pen and make notes. Yeah.
Gender reveal.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, okay, we're on the same.
Exactly what it was.
We did not
Name
plan
reveal
this.
and gender reveal. That's what I want to talk about right now. So first of all,
I'm really against it.
you're against which item?
Gender reveal.
Are you against it?
No, meaning as a parent, I did not know. I have 9 children. I'm blessed with, thank God. I didn't know what any of them were before.
Come
I did
on,
not
you
want to
waited
know.
until delivery to know the
Absolutely.
gender of your children?
By each one.
Wow.
Because for me, it was the biggest thrill. It took away some. Also, I'm very old fashioned.
Okay.
But it just took away the thrill.
And your wife also didn't know the
She
gender?
knew by 1 or 2 or 3, but not more than that. But most of them not. But
Wow, no, 21 weeks. We found out right away. 21
everyone,
weeks.
different strokes.
Now, different strokes for different folks. Now, you brought up something, both the name and the gender. There is absolutely no ban in Judaism on revealing the gender, on revealing the name. Now, nobody does that. And that's not a bad thing, don't get me wrong. But there is no source in Judaism for any ban or even bad luck for revealing the name or the gender. But it's meant to be the surprise. The audience's anticipation at the bris, what's going to be the name, which grandparent is going to get the name, and so on and so forth. And there's grounds for that. It's very nice. So to the gender, probably even more uncomfortable to reveal a gender. But once again, it's no
So what
ban.
with these gender reveal parties?
Oh, that's goyish. Michael, that's goyish.
But
Jews don't do that.
Plenty of Jews do it. Oh, yes, they do.
Not in my circles.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're in a very elite circle, but there's a world out there, Ari. You got to get outside a little bit.
Yeah. So the gender
Get out of Beit Shemesh once in a while.
that might not be a good thing to do from a Jewish perspective. To brag or to advertise, to publicize the gender is not a Jewish thing. We believe in tznius, modesty. Keep some things quiet, not necessarily
I'll
top
give you a
secret.
practical reason. Like when our kids are having kids, we go to the States a few times a year, certainly in the summer, and that's the time to buy clothing for the kids, right? So my wife needs to know pink or blue.
Right.
So
no ban on a child telling a mother or father buy the blue or
but
buy
I didn't
the
look.
pink.
I didn't peek in the suitcase.
Okay. Yeah.
This past summer, I didn't look.
Okay, kol hakavod, as they say. Nothing wrong with knowing the gender. Once again, it's your own practice, and that's fine. But within children, parents, there's really no ban whatsoever on revealing to a parent, even a grandparent, what the gender is. There's nothing wrong with that from a Jewish perspective.
Let's talk about names more.
Okay.
Like, so who do you name after? A live person, a dead person?
Oh, very good.
You know what?
So the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim part ways on that question. Who do you name for? Ashkenazim will only name for deceased relatives. Sephardim are supposed to name for living relatives. The living parents expect that the coming babies will be named after the 4 grandparents in Sephardic circles.
All right, so I got a question for you. Let's say there's a mixed marriage. Okay, no, I don't mean non-Jew and Jew.
Right.
I mean Sephardi and Ashkenazi.
Ashkenazi.
Now, the Sephardi man, his father is expecting that name, and the wife wouldn't hear of it. You must have questions like
Yeah.
this. Okay. So what do we do?
The answer is easy. And according to Jewish law, all family customs go according to the husband.
Whoa.
All customs. So if an Ashkenazi woman marries a Sephardi man, that first boy is going to be the name of the father-in-law. Or else, fireworks will erupt. And by Ashkenazim, we're very opposed to that. There's a belief it's an ayin hara, evil eye. It's bad luck to name after living relatives, and Ashkenazim hold that very strongly.
How did that disagreement develop? It's really black and white, living or dead. Like, how did that?
So the Sephardim take it as an act of honor,
Mm-hmm.
a meritorious, commendable act of honor. We didn't see it that way. The Ashkenazi circles.
Does Sephardim also name after dead or only alive?
Yes, no, they also name
both.
after deceased. Yeah.
So it seemed to me a nice compromise would be where they both agree you can name after deceased. Why push the envelope with the...
Okay. But once again, whether it's for, strict issues or lenient issues, we always follow the husband. An Ashkenazi woman marries a Sephardi man, eats rice on Passover. But a Sephardi woman who marries an Ashkenazi man ceases to eat rice on Passover.
Cut this out for the feminists, guys. All right, what you going to cut?
Okay.
How would you answer a feminist?
We have ways of doing things as Jews. There's any outside influence that goes against Judaism is illegitimate. If you want to add to Judaism or, there's no ban on Judaism on wearing, purple shoes. You want to walk around wearing purple shoes.
What color are your socks today?
Oh, Michael, you're going to embarrass me in front of everybody.
Yellow.
I like to match my socks
the shoes
with
are
my
purple.
pants.
They're burgundy.
No, this is brown, Michael.
Okay,
you see, there's no ban. You can, dress what you want. So if the feminists, or let's call it the clothingists, want to make a decree that we're going to only wear purple shoes, Judaism has no problem with that. But if someone's going to come and say, we are not going to abide by the Jewish custom of following the husband's practices, that would be illegitimate. So Judaism has room for other ways of life, practices, beliefs, but it can't go against normative Jewish practice and belief. Okay, so I think we can wrap up our little piece here on babies in Judaism. Hope you enjoyed.
I think we could probably do another segment once when we get to Z and go back to AB. We can maybe revisit it.
With pleasure.
I have some other questions, but let's move on. We got to cover some ground.
So our next topic is birthdays. Birthdays, one of happy topics. Everyone loves a good birthday party. What does Judaism have to say about birthdays? Great question, right? So on the whole, the Jewish approach to birthdays is positive. Yeah, have a birthday party, invite your friends over, cake, and so on. But a few interesting points over here. Those who are not so excited about birthdays point to the fact that the only mention of birthdays in the Bible is with Pharaoh.
Right.
Why does the Torah only bring birthdays in the context of an evil person? Maybe only evil people celebrated birthdays while the righteous people didn't celebrate birthdays. So you have a slight opposition to birthdays in Judaism for that reason. But as I mentioned, on the whole, the Jewish philosophy, the rabbinic approach is that birthdays are very acceptable, especially in later.
The Hebrew date or English date?
Oh, that's a very good one. So as Jews, we believe that the Hebrew calendar is paramount. Priority, primary. And in fact, we believe that on your Hebrew birthday, you have a koach, you have a power to bless people, an energy, a vibe, whatever the right word is now in 2026. But the Jewish birthday, the Hebrew birthday, is considered to be a very, very special day. That being said, we don't give enough credit or respect to the secular calendar. A secular birthday also has some weight. I'm going to share with you a little story, little anecdote that most people don't know. And the great Lubavitcher Rebbe, the great famous rabbi from Brooklyn who died in 1994, I believe, very famous. You just Google Lubavitcher Rebbe or Rabbi Schneerson. So he was known to say Happy New Year on January 1st. So the first time that this news broke that the Rebbe, the holy Rebbe, is saying Happy New Year, the Rebbe, how can you say Happy New Year, the non-Jewish calendar?
Wait, isn't that the bris of somebody from the Christian religion? Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. That's a different topic.
It's a different topic, but everyone knows that JC was not born on December 25th. That date was arbitrarily chosen, and we can go into that. Maybe is that our C for Christmas, or I don't know. But I have material on that as well.
Let's see for Hanukkah, maybe. Okay.
I have material on that as well. But I wanted the Lubavitcher Rebbe comes out one January 1st and says Happy New Year. Says Rebbe, it's Goyish. How can you say Happy New Year? So he says, you know what? There's a verse in Psalms that says God considers the calculations of the world. And this was explained that when the non-Jewish world wants to have a calendar or a counting system or an order, and there's nothing idolatrous about it, there's nothing immodest about it, the Rebbe says it's acceptable. Happy New Year. So even the non-Jewish birthday, at least in my eyes, is something to celebrate. Again, the primary is Hebrew birthday, make no mistake. But if you can't have a birthday party on Hebrew birthday for whatever reason, have it on your English birthday.
Judaism does very much consider the secular calendar, or certainly the year. Obviously, there's a Jewish year, which is 354 days, 11 days less than the solar cycle, which is that's really how old you are, because we accept this. We adjust our lunar calendar to the solar calendar, but we accept the reality of the solar calendar. So there is something in Judaism very significant about 365 and a quarter days.
Very good.
So it makes a lot of sense. That's really how old you are in a physical, scientific sense. And Judaism doesn't reject that at all. It goes along with science.
You strengthen my point.
Okay.
Exactly right. Okay. Very good. But here's something very interesting that most people don't know, and that many rabbinic authorities are against the birthday candles. The birthday cake is okay, but put the candles there, and even worse, blow out those candles.
And make the wish? Come on.
So there's a lot of rabbinic opinion opposed to that.
Really?
And I'll tell you why. There's a couple of reasons why. One, the idea of having candles burning in a celebratory manner some want to say was taken from a pagan custom. Very possible. The whole world has a birthday cake with candles. Where'd that come from? For every nation, every country, every society, every religion, birthday cake is candles. It originates somewhere. So it's very possible it originated in a pagan source. But even more significant, this might sound funny to our listeners, to our viewers, but another reason why many rabbis are against the birthday candles is because when you blow out the candles, you make a sound. Right? Now, sages say that there's an evil angel whose name is
What?
and therefore by going, you arouse the evil angel.
What?
Wild, huh?
That's crazy.
Listen,
Where is this from?
That's why I'm on the show, Michael, to share with our viewers things they don't hear anywhere else.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I got my sources. Yeah, really, I kid you not. There is an evil angel whose name is. So we don't want to, in Judaism, it's a practice like that, never to say the names of evil angels.
Well, that means you can never blow out a candle.
So according
What
to
about
that
the
view,
the Havdalah candle? Is that why the Havdalah candle?
It's not blown out.
That's fat. Well, first say, what is Havdalah?
Havdalah candles. Now, Saturday night when Shabbat ends, there's a little ceremony with the wine and the spices and the candle. And we have the wine as every, ceremony has wine. Spices, we smell spices to remember, to refresh ourselves. As Shabbat goes away, we're a little bit sad. So a good smell is meant to refresh the body, refresh the soul. And we have the candle. Now, the candle is to recall that Adam and Eve discovered fire on a Saturday night. That's why there's a candle as part of the Havdalah Saturday night. But as you mentioned, we don't blow out the Havdalah candle. We dip it in the wine from the prayer on the cup.
I actually never knew why.
Yeah, so there's two reasons. One is because there's an angel whose name is, and we don't want to arouse. Okay, it sounds a bit funny, and it is, but that's the source. And the other thing is, there's another opposition to blowing out candles because fire is compared to a person's soul. And blowing out candles represents extinguishing of a soul to some extent.
So that would also, that's another reason maybe not to have blow out birthday candles.
Yeah, that's another
if you're
reason.
Celebrating your life, right? How many candles you have with +1 for a good life, and you just blow them out.
That's correct. So the blowing out of candles, many people like don't do it, and they'll just wave their hands.
You do it for your kids, honestly?
Yeah, we do it. Okay. We do it.
I don't know anyone that doesn't actually.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. But the ban or this opposition to blowing out candles is not codified in the Code of Jewish Law and the Shulchan Aruch, and therefore every family can decide what they want to do. Only things that are codified law do we have to follow, but there's a lot of in Judaism that's gray.
It's a custom.
Yeah.
It's a custom.
It's gray. A lot of things in Judaism are gray, and you can choose to follow it or not, and that's the story with candles, birthday candles and the cake.
What about birthday gifts?
So birthday gifts are great. It's always nice to make somebody happy for any good reason, whether it's a birthday present or it's a Shabbat present in honor of Shabbat. Making people happy, bringing your wife gifts, very important. So yeah, that is okay. And
birthday cards.
Birthday cards are great. Yeah, that's also acceptable. I mentioned the Rebbe a moment ago. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was very noted strongly. He was in favor of birthdays, tremendously in favor of birthdays. He encourages the birthday parties. And he says on your birthday, use it as a spiritual day to grow, to take an accounting and inventory of your life, make resolutions to get better, give charity, study Torah, pray with extra concentration. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe was very, very into birthdays and encouraged everyone to do birthdays. I mentioned this Rebbe very often in our podcast over here because I went to the yeshiva. I studied in yeshiva under Rabbi Schneerson in the Chabad movement. So I have a lot of influence in my life from him, even though today I'm not an official card-carrying member of the movement. But I still have some great stuff I got from them.
Also, I would say birthdays is a good time to say thank you. You lived another year. You have a lot to be happy for, whatever you have to be thankful for. It's a time to reflect and thank Hashem.
The rabbinic texts talk about the later birthdays, especially what you brought up, 60 and 70 and 80 and 90, that we should have an extra special celebration on these milestones. I mean, if you look in scripture seems to suggest that the life of a person is 70 years. So 70th birthday is a big celebration, and everyone thereafter, because you lived another year more than scripture seems to say is a lifespan. So yeah, even the senior birthdays, how many of you had already? We won't talk about that. We have confidential information here. But yeah, the older you are, the more you should celebrate, in fact. Yeah. So birthdays are special. Use it as a day of doing mitzvahs. Of course, the 13th birthday for a boy is tremendous celebration, right? The 12th birthday for a girl, tremendous celebration. Bar and bat mitzvah. Okay, so that wraps up our discussion on birthdays and our third B for our A to Z series of topics. Our third B is the one you've been waiting for. Bastards.
No.
That word is back, Michael. And we're going to be talking about
They don't listen
bastards.
to me. I tell them there's no cursing on this podcast. They don't listen to me.
As I think I mentioned earlier,
Oh,
the
did
word
I pick the top? Oh, sorry, I didn't pick it.
The word bastard is actually legitimate. Unfortunately, it's been abused. So you know what? To make everyone comfortable, we'll use the Hebrew. We'll use the word mamzer. And we won't use the English
It's not
bastard.
much better.
Yeah.
Would you rather be called a mamzer or a bastard?
Exactly. It's also been abused in Jewish circles, the word mamzer. But I think for viewers, I think for our program, maybe mamzer is better. So I'll say it one more time.
Spell it, because there's probably people out there never heard of that word.
Okay, so mamzer is M-A-M. That's mother, a mother. M-A-M-Z-E-R.
You say
Canadian.
Z, by
Yeah,
the
I'm
way.
Canadian. I'm Canadian. It's Z. Okay, M-A-M-Z-Z-E-R. Mamzer, which again is bastard, which is an illegitimate child. However, here's a major misconception. It's not any illegitimate child. If you have a boy and a girl who are not married and they have a child, that child is not a mamzer. It's not a proper relationship. Judaism doesn't approve of such things.
In English, they would, in secular society, they would call it an illegitimate child.
Correct.
But in terms of Torah law, that's not the case.
Correct. It's not an illegitimate child. The marital union, or it's not a marriage, this relationship is illegitimate. It's not acceptable. But any children born from this relationship are legitimate Jews, just like everybody else. A mamzer is a child born primarily, there's another example of mamzer I'll get to in a moment, but the most common, hopefully it's not common, but the most common way a mamzer would be produced is when a married woman has a child with a man who's not her husband. They call that adultery. If a woman has an adulterous affair and she gets pregnant, has a baby, that baby is a mamzer. Now it's very interesting, related to all this, adultery in Judaism is defined as a married woman having a relationship with another man who is not her husband. You see, in English, they call it cheating. Okay. If a married woman cheats on her husband and has an affair with another man, Jewish or not Jewish, she is an adulteress. But if a married man has an affair with another woman, although it's a terrible relationship, terrible thing to do for many reasons, it's not adultery. It's not adultery. The feminists are going to go berserk now.
I was just going to say
I
that.
was ready for that. The feminists are going to go to berserk. What do you mean? If a married lady has an affair, it's called adultery. But if a married man has an affair, it's just called inappropriate. The answer is very simple. It's nothing feminist or nothing anti-women. The Torah allows a man to have more than one wife. But the Torah does not allow a woman to have more
so
than
the
one.
feminists will say, well, then that's not fair.
Oh, they got to deal
Why?
with God. That's fine.
Okay.
But you got to deal with God,
Okay.
not with the rabbis. That's God, black on white in the Torah. So that's something to know, is that adultery is defined as a married woman having a relationship with a man who's not her husband. Any children produced are illegitimate and they are called mamzerim. Another form of mamzer, which is even more rare, is that a child produced from incestuous relationships. A brother and a sister have a baby, that baby is a mamzer. So these are very odd and very, very,
That's not the only incestuous relationship.
correct.
There's all sorts of, the Torah goes through all the different cases.
Right. Leviticus chapter 18, Leviticus chapter 20, many, but not all, but many of the forbidden sexual unions in Leviticus 18, Leviticus 20 will produce a mamzer. On a similar note, one of the forbidden relationships in Leviticus 18 is for a man to have relations with a menstruant woman. We call it a nida. And of course, that happens every month in every marriage. So the Torah tells us that if a man was to have relations with his wife while she was a menstruant, or even after the period ends, but before immersion in a mikvah, relations are absolutely forbidden on penalty of kares, some kind of spiritual death. But the baby produced is not a mamzer in that case. And in fact, that might be the only case where you have a forbidden relationship whose punishment is karet, this spiritual death, that does not produce a mamzer. All the other relationships where it says in the Bible, and the soul will be cut off, and the soul will be cut off, that's kare, the soul will be cut off, those relationships will produce a mamzer in addition to the adultery. Now, a mamzer is a very, very unfortunate development. I know in Israel, they keep a list to the best of their ability of who's a mamzer. I think England also has a list of mamzerim because who a mamzer can marry is very limited. A mamzer, unfortunately...
Well, firstly, is a mamzer a full-fledged Jew?
So the answer is yes, 100%.
They get a bris, they get...
A bris. A mamzer is a full-fledged Jew, counting for a minyan, a quorum in the synagogue, the bris, study in the yeshiva, become a rabbi, full Jew in every way. Except the mamzer, whether it's a male or female, has a lot of marriage restrictions. A mamzer, the Bible tells us, the Torah tells us, lo yavo bekal Hashem. A mamzer cannot come in the community of the Jewish people, the community of God, and that is a term in the Torah for marriage. So a mamzer can only marry another mamzer, and a mamzer also can marry a convert. But still, everything produced thereafter is also mamzer. So it's very, very uncomfortable. It's very sad that the children have to suffer for the sins of the parents.
1 second. Let's say a mamzer marries a convert. The child is automatically a mamzer, whether it's the wife or the husband? In other words,
that's correct. If I'm not mistaken, you got me, Michael, but if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, folks, but if I'm not mistaken,
it's a patrilineal descent. It's relating to that also.
Yeah, whether it's a male or female, the child will be a mamzer thereafter. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure. I did not look that point up for today's talk, but I'm pretty sure.
So there's no way to break the chain.
No way to break the chain.
Even if you marry a convert, you're still...
Yeah, there is a Talmudic method to break the chain, but for all practical purposes, it's not implemented anymore. It has to do with slavery, certain laws of slavery that are not practiced nowadays. So the answer is no, there's no way to break the chain. But because of the seriousness of the mamzer issue, the rabbis try to avoid designating a person a mamzer. And rabbis will find every excuse possible to declare the child kosher.
Give an example.
Were there witnesses to the affair? How do you know there was an affair? So... you can say DNA, go take a DNA test.
Let's say they admit it.
If they admit it, maybe it's all a plot to penalize one spouse on the next one to extort some kind of,
so in other words, even if they both admit it,
if they both admit it, it's going to be a hard time to save the kid. But the rabbinic law does bend over backwards. No witnesses. Who knows what really took place? No true need to do a DNA test in Jewish law. So we're going to play all kinds of games to try to declare the child kosher. Of course, the child comes out a different color than a parent, then you can't prove it. You got a serious problem. But the rabbis do find many loopholes, and it's a very, very short list of who is a bona fide mamzer nowadays. Wow. Yeah.
So there is a master list somewhere?
I'm told the Israeli rabbinate does keep a master list to the best of their ability to help for good purposes, trying to help find a possible spouse.
Is that a category on these online dating, marriage sites?
That's a good question. I've never been on them, but yeah, I know Orthodox conservative reform is a category you can tick off. I don't know if mamzer is a category.
I don't know how many people would admit, tick off the mamzer box. So it may not reflect so well, but that was just a joke. But it's a very serious thing.
Very serious thing, but it's
because the child is just a victim, an innocent victim. But the Torah is, sometimes it's tough,
sometimes the Torah does punish the children for the sins of the parents, unfortunately. It is a real thing, unfortunately. What else can I tell you about the mamzer? I said it's very, very rare. All kinds of doubts. We would call safek and svek in Jewish law. There's, whenever you can find a doubt, and especially a double doubt, forget the issue. There's a double doubt. We try that. I think we've covered, the major issues of mamzer. So once again, very unfortunate category to be in. There's nothing wrong with the child. The child could be a righteous Jew, a successful Jew, a learned Jew, a rabbi, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, there will be this marriage restriction upon the child.
Right. Interesting. Well, in the secular world, as you mentioned, whether it's the husband who's married having an affair or the wife, it is considered illegitimate, although that is not Torah based.
You mean it's called adultery?
They will still call it adultery,
right?
But that's not the technical definition of adultery.
From the Jewish
people say, the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery. I don't think most people know this. I'm saying Judaism has a very specific definition of what that is. I think out there in the world, it's not known.
Correct.
I guess if you're not Jewish, it doesn't really matter in terms of, it doesn't have any effect on future relationships or future statuses. But I think that it's just not known. So I think it's important that the definition is clear.
Yeah.
A lot of times people use words, especially when it's English translated, adultery or other words, can't, for example, thou shalt not do work on the Sabbath, or what does work mean? It means I can't go to my job. Doesn't mean I can't move a chair from one room to the other. It's very heavy. What does work mean? I just think it underscores the idea that the Torah uses words, but without the oral Torah, without the explanations, the Talmud that God gave to Moses on the mountain. It wasn't written. It was passed down orally for hundreds of years until it was finally written down. Without that, you really can't understand what the Torah is talking about. Right. Even thou shalt not steal. Isn't that talking about kidnapping?
Very good. You brought up the 10 Commandments. Let me bring that to our viewers. The lo tignov, the don't steal of the 10 Commandments, according to the majority of commentators and rabbinic authorities, doesn't mean don't steal other people's possessions. It means don't kidnap.
Right.
So again, without the oral tradition, without the Talmud, you don't know how to be Jewish. In fact, here's something really cool to think about. There's a misconception that the Jewish people follow the Torah. There's a misconception that the Jewish people follow the Bible, and that's wrong. The Jewish people follow the Torah as interpreted by the Talmud. Mm-hmm. Very important. A huge difference.
Look, if without the Talmud, you could just come up with your own explanation. What does this word mean?
Exactly.
You shall put a sign between your eyes. Or it's talking about the phylacteries that's filling. Where? What does it look like? Right. Every Jew has a black box they put on their head and they put in their arm. It doesn't say in the Torah anywhere. This is a major conversation because Judaism is black and white, but it's not black and white from the way it's written in the 5 books of Moses.
That's right.
Because it's impossible to know what it's talking about half the time.
There are religions that were created based on a literal reading of the Bible and nothing else, and they don't get very far.
That's false Judaism.
Yeah, false Judaism. They didn't really get very far as a group. But we believe that we are to observe the Torah as interpreted by the Talmud. I mean, I'll give you even a better example, perhaps, in the tefillin example, which is also very good, very real. Like you brought the tefillin, Torah doesn't say they have to be black, doesn't have to say be square. But the Torah says you can only eat meat if you slaughter it the way I have told you. That's what the Torah says. You may only eat meat if you slaughter it the way I've told you.
But where did God tell us?
Exactly. Nowhere in the 5 books of Moses, nowhere in the Torah is there any instructions. And therefore, that's another proof that there is an existing Talmudic oral law tradition passed down from father to son on how to slaughter animals according to Jewish law.
And that has no less legitimacy than the written element.
That's correct.
God gave a written Torah to Moses. He also gave him an oral Torah.
That's right.
That was passed down from generation to generation. It wasn't written down to 1,000 years? I don't know.
A long time. To the Talmudic era. Well, year zero,
it's
year 100.
It's amazing how it passed down orally without being written down. But what's fascinating is that you can, throughout all communities, even when Jews were separated from other Jews, the 10 lost tribes, they all had the same tradition.
That's
and when you find some of these long lost Jews, they're still wearing the tefillin, the black boxes. They hadn't been in contact for perhaps thousands of years with other Jews. And you can see it's true. So it's very deep. The Torah is very deep. And that's really part of what we're trying to accomplish here, to bring the true Torah, not just what it says in the 5 books, but what's behind it. What did God really intend when he vocalized the details to Moses, and that got passed down orally? What is that Torah? That's what it's really all about. So it's really fascinating. And I think the idea of the mamzer, the bastard, I would say the adulteress, is really a perfect example of that. But that's just one example of many in Judaism. And God willing, we're going to be covering a lot of these fascinating topics.
Yeah.
many people just don't know. It's just, they don't know.
And a major angle of our A to Z series is exactly to share with the viewers things that are lesser known, like the adultery definition and the kosher slaughter. Where does it come from? That's going to be the emphasis on our program over here, to share with viewers lesser known Judaism.
Well, I didn't know a lot about birthdays, really. That was interesting.
That's what we try to do over here at The Rabbi Says. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your host, Rabbi Ari Enkin. See you again in the next program.